Buying an investment property can be exciting. It can also be very profitable. But if you're a newer investor, it can sometimes be a mystery. What actually happens from the time you put a property under contract all the way till the time you close on a property and become the owner? What are the steps? What are the processes, the paperwork, the people who are supposed to help you and support you along the way? Well, in this video, I'm going to use my experience over the last 18 years buying hundreds of investment properties to give you the steps and the processes and to actually give you a visual of how this whole process works so that you can be more confident and you can move forward without making those big mistakes on your next investment property. And we're getting started right now. Welcome to Coach Carson TV. My name is Chad Carson. You can also call me Coach, and this is a channel all about investing in real estate, achieving financial independence, and doing more of what matters. If you're new here to the channel, be sure to hit that subscribe button and the little bell so you don't miss anything. I have new videos that come out every Friday morning. In just a moment, I'm going to take you to a clip from an online course that I teach called Contract to Closing. Now, in the course, we go into a lot more depth on each of these steps, and I share the paperwork and the details and answer a lot of questions on each step. So if you're interested in the course, be sure to look in the description for a link to the course and a special offer just for my YouTube audience. But in this video, I want to give you a higher level overview, kind of like a flyover of a city, so you can see how all the streets and everything connects together. And again, with the goal that you're more confident when you buy your next property. Let's get started. All right, I want to go over before we get into the details of contracts, the big picture of this entire process of this class. What are the steps that you go through to actually go from contract to buying a property? And here are the steps as I see them. You start off when you start off negotiating with somebody. So maybe you get a lead from a real estate agent, or maybe you're looking off market and you sent some letters out to somebody who has a vacant house in your neighborhood. Somehow, some way, you've generated a lead. You start talking to them. You start negotiating with a seller, and then you go to step number 2 and you make an offer on this property. We're going to talk about that tonight. At some point, hopefully, not all the time, but somebody's going to accept your offer. And so what happens then? I've had students in my real estate start school class who say, at that point when somebody accepts an offer, that's the time when you panic because what am I supposed to do now? They accepted my offer. So that's step number 3. Chris asked a question to me, can we ask questions during the class? And absolutely, y'all feel free to ask questions as I'm going here. Please do. I'll check the chat here and there as I get to a stopping point. But and if it's a good, appropriate time to ask them, great. If not, I'll hold it till a little bit later. But I see a lot of people introducing themselves and where they're from. I appreciate y'all doing that. All right, so you make an offer, somebody accepts your offer, you sign a contract. So that's part of the main part of what we're going to try to become fluent on in tonight is the steps of that purchase contract. We're then going to go from that contract, you got it under contract, you got that piece of paper, then you go into due diligence, and you actually simultaneously go into preparing for the closing. So there's a lot of steps that we'll go over, getting your financing together, getting your closing attorney or your title company working on the closing, getting your insurance agent working on getting you insurance, and some other steps. So there's a lot of preparation steps there. Then number 7, if you've done a lot of the work ahead of time, the closing itself, which is the appointment where you go and sit in a title company or an attorney's office to actually give you the title to the property, that should actually be pretty smooth if you've done a lot of good preparation ahead of time. I had a closing, when was it? I loaned some money on a closing a couple weeks ago. I could be in there for 5 minutes sometimes if it's a really simple closing. And if you've done all your homework and you've evaluated everything, asked all the questions ahead of time, and I'll look at all those statements ahead of time. So then I just show up at the closing, sign, done. That's an ideal. It's not always that way, but that's the ideal. And then number 8, I also want to go over with you some post-closing details. There's some wrap-up items. There's some items that some of them, like I usually send a thank you letter to the seller or other people who've been involved in the transaction. It's a nice gesture, it builds relationships. There's other things that are just technical. You need to start your bookkeeping. You need to take all the documents, scan them in, save them somewhere. So we're going to get into a lot of the nitty-gritty in this course on those kinds of things. If you're more visual in nature, which I definitely am, here's a diagram that I've been working on. And I'm going to keep on adding to this diagram, but just to show you that process I just explained in a timeline. So starting all the way on the left, you have this negotiation period. And at some point during the negotiation, you make an offer, and hopefully some percentage of your offers get accepted. And then once they get accepted, that moment, hopefully you will have your contract and your paperwork with you. If you're talking directly to a seller, if you have a realtor helping you out, they're going to help you put the paperwork together, but you sign a contract. That's a big milestone of this process. And then once you sign a contract, a whole new period starts of having it under contract. So what happens when it's under contract? You typically have a due diligence period. And I got a ton of questions from y'all about due diligence. We're going to talk a lot about that. We're going to talk about a little bit tonight, but that's the whole week. The next class is going to be just 100% focused on due diligence. So we're going to talk about what you do during that time. But then also there's a lot of other steps that I mentioned earlier during these closing preparations, including the big one is financing. What steps do you need to be working on? If you're using private financing, there's a lot more that you need to be involved in. Some of the paperwork, some of the negotiations with your private lender, some of the mechanics of what's going on. If you have a bank or a kind of institutional lender, you still have to stay on top of them. Nobody's has the priority that you do on this closing. And so I think a theme that you need to think about when you are the investor who is the most invested in this whole process is that you want to be the captain of the ship. You want to be the one who guides this process. And don't count on just because they're an attorney or just because they're an experienced real estate agent or anybody else, don't assume they're going to take control of the process. My recommendation is that you be the one who takes control, and it can be in a nice way, but it should be competent. It should say, hey, this is the next step. Here's what we got to do. If it's the closing attorney, they're supposed to get you something. Hey, just checking in. What's going on? I thought I would get this from you. That's the tone you want to have and kind of the approach you want to have if you want to make sure everything gets done. Because there's just a lot of things can slip through the cracks if you're not focused and careful on it. So at some point you have a closing with a lot of paperwork there, and then the post-closing. So that's just a little visual to show you how that process works. There are so many things that you can learn and get good at in the real estate investing business. But if you think about it, really the essence of what we do, the service we provide to our community is buying investment properties. So getting good at these steps we just talked about is really one of the main skills that we can do as a real estate investor. So I hope this video has been helpful in helping you move forward and build more confidence in that process. If you'd like to go into even more depth and get my help doing that, I have an online course called Contract to Closing. There's a link below in the description with a special deal for my YouTube audience. And if you'd like to get more depth, that course will go, again, step by step, but also give you the paperwork, also give you the chance to ask me questions and interact with me in an online course format. And if you like this topic of real estate investing and kind of the basics and the step-by-step parts of getting started, I think you'll like my next video, which gives you 5 different strategies that I have found to be the most effective strategies for new investors that help you move forward, help you take those next steps with confidence and to actually make some profit without taking really big risks. So check out that next video. I think you'll enjoy some of those strategies. Thank you for watching Coach Carson TV. My name is Chad Carson. You can always call me Coach. And this channel, again, is about real estate investing, financial independence, and doing more of what matters. See you next time.